The following podcast is a Dear Media production.
She's a lifestyle blogger extraordinaire.
Fantastic.
And he's a serial entrepreneur.
A very smart cookie.
And now Lauren Everts and Michael Bosstick are bringing you along for the ride.
Get ready for some major realness.
Welcome to the Skinny Confidential. Him and her.
Aha!
What I think is really useful, and what was useful for me, especially being so passionate about what I do and so pumped about it, was to think about problems. Forget the solutions, like really what are the stuff. So instead of like me trying to hammer people as like mushrooms are awesome, which they are, still like I was like, hey, what are the problems that people have? Like lack of energy, for example. Or people love having, for example, coffee, but they get jitters and they get heartburn, right? So in Finland, we drink more coffee than any other nation in the world, about 3 times more than Americans, which is insane, right? And in the Second World War, we were attacked both by the Russians and the Germans, and we ran out of coffee beans. So we started brewing this mushroom that grew in our forest in a tree called chaga, and we made like a coffee substitute. And I'm like, yeah, that actually makes sense. And I knew the research that it has tons of minerals and antioxidants. Like a cup of chaga would equal to like 30 pounds of keratin antioxidants. And combining half and half of coffee and chaga made total sense. And instead of trying to sell people this chaga mushroom they've never heard of, even if they're super health conscious maybe, it's like, hey, do you drink coffee? Yeah. Do you ever get the jitters? Do you get like heartburn? Sure. Like, try this and feel it on your body and see how you feel.
Welcome back to the Skinny Confidential Him and Her show. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for joining.
That clip was from our guest of the show today, Tero Isokauppila. That's a hard one. Who is the founder of Four Sigmatic. On this episode, we discuss how to create your own category for your online business and brand, the benefits of functional mushrooms, essentials to e-commerce, success, failure, and how to heal your skin with food.
If you're new to the show, I'm Lauren Everts. I'm the creator of The Skinny Confidential. The Skinny Confidential is a blog, a book, and a podcast, and it's become a resource for women all over the world, which has turned into this incredible online community.
And I'm Michael Bosstick. I'm an entrepreneur and business operator. What the hell has been going on, Lauren Everts Bosstick?
Well, a lot of margaritas.
A lot of margaritas.
A lot of chips and salsa.
We are back from Cabo, down there celebrating Lauren's birthday.
We promised that we would tell them what happened before we went to Cabo, like right when we were about to go. So I'll let you just kind of stick your tongue. Go on.
Oh my God, guys. I think I need more help. I need to hire a couple more people to help me out. I am stretched too thin. I did something that I cannot believe that I did.
And let me preface this, you guys, with he never, ever, 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 ever does this. So this is extremely out of character.
Well, for those that know me and know me from the show and know me just in general, this was a nightmare scenario for me.
Yeah, it was.
So listen, I've been working a lot. And I've been putting in a lot of hours. And so when we were booking the flights to Cabo, a little spread thin, we were booking the flights to Cabo, or when I was booking the flights to Cabo, we were going to leave from the San Diego airport, which is SD, and flying to Cabo. And when I was doing it, in the middle of it, I got called into a meeting. So I left it midway through without completing the booking. And then when I came back, I must have accidentally hit the one right below, which is, what is that, SF for San Francisco. And then for the one time that I didn't have anybody entered in my calendar and didn't look at it myself, I am almost embarrassed to say, but I booked the fucking flight from, instead of San Diego to Cabo, from San Francisco to Cabo.
Okay, so let me set the scene. I'm all dressed up. I'm looking so cute because it's my birthday. Michael's supposed to have like kind of a moment with me. He's dressed up. We're all ready. We have our luggage. We're good to go. We're on time. He's dragged me outside. Like he's running to the airport. He's ready to go. We get to the stand at the front with all of our bags. And what did they say, Michael?
They said, sir, this flight leaves from San Francisco and you're in San Diego. And I knew immediately that I fucked up. And I don't want to drag this story out for too long because it's not that interesting. I'm not going to drag it out.
I'm just going to tell you this, that I had to get down to Cabo. There was no way that I wasn't going down there because I had work down there for the first day. And I wanted to celebrate my birthday and get buzzed and just relax. And so
it sounds like an easy fix, but the problem was we were on Alaska and they ran out of flights, and then I had to put you on Southwest, and then they ran out of those flights.
Tell them what you had to do.
Well, then I had to Uber up to LA, and then I had to leave from LA. Anyways, it took me 12 hours to get to Cabo. Very embarrassing. Guys, this could happen to anyone. Check your flights.
If you guys don't understand Michael and my husband, how he is with time, he was whining and panting and sweating. Upper lip was perspiring. At least I got to go down to Cabo right away. Anyway, that was our day. Went to Cabo. It was amazing. Palmilla was just incredible as always. If you guys go down to Cabo, you have to check it out. We were down there to celebrate my birthday, but mainly to relax, to take a break off social media, to take a break off the phone, to take a break off the computer.
A lot of people were asking, I didn't post one picture. I didn't post one story because I needed a tech break, right? And my dream's been this year to take a few days and have no interactivity with any technology. So that's exactly what I did. I just stayed there and read. I'm reading a book called Mastery by Robert Greene, and I meditated and I worked out every day and I just chilled out and drank margaritas. And I think it's so important to take breaks once in a while. We're so connected to this phone and the computer all the time that, that 3 to 4 days, I feel like I'm like fully reset and ready to kick ass again. But I needed a break.
For the first time in 8 years, I didn't look at my email for 5 days straight, which is really nuts. Now, when I came back to my email 5 days later, that was an avalanche, but that's okay.
No, but you know what? We were talking about this. I think like the inbox is not a space that you have to feel like you have to work in, right? It's a space to be productive. I think that the email inbox has become a place where people feel like they can come in and ask for things. And I'm not saying that happens to us. It happens to everybody. I think if anybody who's managing an inbox, don't feel obligated to respond to everything. While you want to respond, but try to respond to productive things, right? If it's like Cousin Joe asking for a cup of coffee, or it's somebody asking to submit something to you, or if it's somebody asking you to do something on their time, like you really need to ask yourself, is this productive for what I'm trying to do for my business, for my brand, for my job, whatever it is? And if it's not, then really question if it's useful to respond, because what happens is when you feel like you have to respond to everyone and then you can't follow through with a commitment to that response, then you're letting people down.
I completely agree with you. And what I've done that's really, really helped if anyone's out there and they're managing a business is I've created sub emails. So I have Ask Lauren for any questions, like audience questions. We have a podcast email to book podcasts. We have a support email. We have a newsletter email. And we have a presence email for giveaways. And so what that does is when I get into my inbox, I can just forward those out. So that clears it up. And then anything that, like Michael said, isn't contributing to growing the business, it's more working in the business, I try to get to it later or just not answer it. I also have this thing called Unroll Me. You guys have to try it. It's amazing. This isn't an ad. I'm just telling you, you need it. And basically it goes through your inbox and you can pick what you want to be in this one email a day. So say you're subscribed to 100 newsletters. Instead of getting 100 emails, you would just get one and it would streamline everything. You know what else we did in Cabo?
What? Oh, you're talking about me getting lucky. Or you getting lucky.
Why are you smiling like that?
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking I'm going to get lucky again. Probably not.
A lot of rose petals all over the bed. A lot of bubble baths.
A lot of woo.
A lot of woo. We brought woo down there. And if you're wondering, woo is an all-natural lube that's made up of 4 main ingredients, which we love. Organic coconut oil, beeswax, a little stevia, and a tiny bit of vanilla. It's really perfect. It's just all the things everyone loves. And why I loved it, especially on my birthday in Cabo, is because
I loved it because you'll use it with me.
It's edible. And it really does make sex better. Some people were saying, I don't need lube. It's not that you need it. It's that it enhances the sex. So think of it like a fake eyelash, okay, when you're doing your makeup. Like you do your makeup, you can curl your lashes, you can put your mascara on, but when you add a fake lash, it's just like that extra pop.
But guys, don't get lazy out there, because we were down there with our friend Ariel and she was saying that
Juicy Joe,
Juicy
Joe's her fiance.
But Ariel was saying that Joe needs to put more effort in because he just pulls out the woo, and that means it's time to go. So guys, if you're out there, I love that you're using the woo, but you still have to, get your woman in the mood.
Put some effort into it. Don't be like DJ Cal.
Yeah, don't just pull out the woo.
Yeah, come on now. Anyway, all of our friends have tried it, and they tell us that it's changed their sex life, honestly, and it's definitely enhanced ours. I feel like it's a good gift for boyfriends, girlfriends, bachelorette parties. Get creative with it. So we have a new promo code for all TSC listeners. And for those of you who have already used it, you can use this code too. So if you've already gotten frisky in the sheets with woo, you can still use this code. The code is him and her for 20% off your purchase plus free shipping. All you have to do is go to www.wooforplay.com and enter code him and her at checkout. Again, that's wooforplay.com, promo code him and her for 20% off and free shipping. Enjoy, get frisky, use it anywhere. The way I like to use Woo is I like to start with a massage and see where things end up. You never know. But the point
is... Or where things end up. All right, we're kind of on and off with the him and her tip because sometimes we're feeling it and sometimes we're not. This week we are feeling it. So my him tip this week comes from our conversation with Tero, which you're going to hear soon. So in this episode with Tero, we talk a lot about customer feedback and particularly customer reviews and how a company can benefit from reading a particular set of reviews. And it also got me thinking about how we take feedback from our peers in our personal lives or in our business lives. So you're going to have people in your life that are constantly giving you great feedback, telling you how great you are, telling how awesome you're doing, telling how great your idea is and how wonderful everything you do is. And those are typically probably like the grandparents, maybe your parents, maybe your best friends. And then we're also going to have the people who are giving us constant negative feedback. I'm sure we all have somebody like that in our life who's constantly telling us how terrible we are and how fucked up everything is that we do. And with those people, you kind of want to zone them out. But I'd also say you want to zone out a little bit of what the other side of that is too, which is the people that are telling you how great you are. Because when you're hearing both sides of the spectrum from extremes to extremes on how great and how bad, it doesn't really give you an accurate depiction of how you're really behaving and how you're really performing. So I think it's really important for us to take both of those with a grain of salt. What we really need in our life is 3 to 4 people that will give us honest and true feedback. So maybe that's, a relative or a best friend that you can really sit down and say, hey, how am I really performing in this area? Or how am I really behaving? Or how am I acting in this relationship? And have them really give you true feedback. And that may sting and it may hurt, but from that feedback, if you practice a little bit of self-awareness and you're open to a little bit of criticism and learning, you'll be able to really adjust and alter your behavior or your interactions to improve yourself. I think, if you go through life when someone patting you on the back and telling you how great you are all the time, it's difficult to grow. And same way, if someone's telling you how terrible you are, it's difficult to go there. So what you want to find is that true, honest, sweet spot in the middle. And to do that, you have to really get with some people that you really trust and say, hey, buddy, I really need you to tell me how I'm acting in this instance or how I'm behaving or how my performance is, and take that feedback and really, really listen to what they're saying and work on improving. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't believe all the praises and don't believe all the negative, but really try to find that sweet spot. Think about it as like if it was a 3-star review on your life, and from there you can grow.
Okay, my tip is a kind of a plot twist from that. It has to do with Instagram. So when I went to Cabo, I decided that I wanted to put a twist on my Instagram feed. And so I think it's really important to make sure that you're evolving as a blogger or a creator. I know we get really stuck in our colors and our brand and our fonts, and that's really, really important. But at the same time, you want to find this happy medium where you're able to evolve. So I always like to say that I always want my content to get better. I never want it to get worse, obviously, but I never want it to stay stagnant. So I sat down with my photographer and I sat down with a Pinterest board and some pictures that I had screenshotted that I liked for inspiration. And I decided to kind of really pay attention to how I would take this trip and evolve my Instagram feed. Now, if you're rolling your eyes, don't, because an Instagram feed, in my opinion, is your resume of 2018. Okay. It's very, very important when you're building a brand. It's what people look at, and it's a choosing to follow you or unfollow you or consume your content or not consume your content. And like it or don't, it's where consumer attention is. So I wanted to give you guys some tips on how I kind of evolved my Instagram feed while I was on vacation, and maybe these will inspire you to kind of shake up your Instagram feed. Again, I'm going to constantly keep it evolving and never really try to focus on getting stagnant, but more growing exponentially. So the first thing is you always want to match your mood. So if you're on vacation and you're in Cabo, it's going to be different than if you're on vacation and you're in London, right? London is a different story than Cabo. So make sure you're telling your story. With me, I wanted to wear a lot of neons in Cabo. I felt like that went with the vibe of Cabo, and it really told the story. We also added light flares, and some of you guys were asking. The ones that we used were from KD Pro or Hugi, and that's Hugi. You could use either one, and they're going to give you those light flares. It's also going to give you the date on the picture with Hugi. I know that that's super popular. You could do that too. Another tip is to make sure you're color correcting your images before you use the filter. So you want to do a lot of white balance. Lately, I've been doing my tint a little bit pinker, but you want to make sure you're matching your brand. So maybe your brand has a lot of blue in it. Just really pay attention to the brand that you want to convey to your audience. Also, what I like to do is I like to use this app called Snug. And what Snug does is it lays out your entire Instagram feed before you post. So you can really see that everything is flowing. Again, you want to tell that story. And with Snug, you can see if you're doing too many selfies in a row, you don't want to do that. You want to mix it up. You want to show the full picture. You want to show what you're eating. You want to show what you're doing. You want to tell that story through your Instagram aesthetic. For editing apps, I highly recommend VSCO, Facetune, Snapseed, Darkroom, A Color Story, KD Pro, like I said, or InShot for Instagram stories. InShot is going to give you that look for Instagram stories where you can post multiple pictures on one slide. That's a great tip for anyone out there who's a blogger or an influencer. Check out that app. If you want more Instagram tips, head over to my Instagram, which is @theskinnyconfidential, and click the photo of me wearing a pink long sleeve shirt. I did a full breakdown on it.
Tero Isokauppila is the creator and founder of Four Sigmatic, which is a company that specializes in superfoods, medicinal mushrooms, and adaptogenic herbs. Tero was born in Finland and grew up on a farm that his family owned since the early 1600s, where he learned to forage for mushrooms and learn about the natural food space. As the founder of Four Sigmatic, he is making functional mushrooms accessible to any and everyone. Four Sigmatic products have now been used by over 1 million customers in over 65 countries. Tero is also a best-selling author and a total entrepreneurial ninja. With that, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Tero Isokauppila.
This is the Skinny Confidential, him and her.
So tell us about your childhood.
I grew up in a small country in Northern Europe called Finland. Some people know it, some people don't. It's next to Sweden, and we were part of Sweden for a long time. And the town where I grew up is called Nokia, which is one of the world's most famous small towns. Nobody knows it's from Finland or it's a town, but the mobile phones made it famous. And I am a 13th generation family farmer and from Nokia, Finland.
Or 13th generation, how far does that go back?
16? Well, 1609, we know for sure. Might be longer, but like our old capital got burned.
From Finland to mushrooms.
Well, mushrooms in Finland, right?
Mushrooms in Finland, exactly. So my mom taught me foraging, and our whole family's been foraging. I went to an environmental school where we foraged for berries, mushrooms, shoots, leaves, whatnot. Showered in spring water, made nests for owls and stuff. And that's where it started. And my passion was always like optimal human performance. And I was interested in I studied chemistry first and then nutrition. And that was my passion. I wanted to become a professional soccer player. Got 2 knee injuries, but I was never bummed because I was never that good. But few of my friends were, and they became professional athletes, and I started coaching professional athletes, models, whatnot. And then about 13 years ago, randomly discovered a rare mushroom growing in Finland, and the government gave me money. So
wait. Are you like walking around and you see a mushroom on the ground?
One day you're just out foraging.
How do you discover a mushroom?
I love that we could say you were foraging. I've never actually got to hang out with somebody that's foraging. So
we should go foraging.
Yeah,
you can do it anywhere in the world. We can go get sage or something like that.
Okay.
So we don't have to do mushrooms. We can get something else.
I love it. So you're foraging and you just discover a mushroom. How do you know it's something that's going to have these magical powers?
So it's actually started as a joke. I found it with a friend. It's actually a really geeky mushroom story. So I don't want to bore people with that. I want to really give people something of value. But there's a lot of mushrooms in the world. Most of them are undiscovered. Even the ones that are discovered get renamed all the time, and that's just normal. Science or biology are not the truth. They're the discovery of truth, and the truth constantly changes. So if something is scientifically valid, might not be scientifically valid anymore a year from now. Same with mushrooms or plants. Sometimes they get renamed. Like one mushroom I've been working with the last 10 or so years have been renamed 3 times within this 10 years. So that happens. So anyway, found this mushroom as a joke, entered an innovation contest. The Nordic countries really support entrepreneurship, and they gave me money, and I was pumped because I was young, and I was like, oh, free money. And then they wanted to fund the business, but I ended up donating it to a university because it was meant to serve Michelin star restaurants with really, really expensive mushrooms, and my passion was always serving the people in more mainstream ways, So
So let's talk. I know you get asked this question a lot, but let's talk why mushrooms and how do you figure out which mushrooms?
Yeah. So mushrooms or fungi are a kingdom. So they're not plants. Plants are an own kingdom. Animals are a kingdom. Bacteria is a kingdom. And fungi is one kingdom. And any balanced diet should have diversity. So often we talk about the battle. Should you eat plants? Should you eat meat? I don't know how much, what's the animal plant-based ratio? And we often forget bacteria and fungi. And they're actually very synergistic. For example, gut health, from kombucha to making beer, wine, yeasts are in the fungi family. So you eat mushrooms every day, even if you don't know, for sure. But there's certain types, like with every kingdom, there's the best of the best, the creme de la creme, you know? It's not like all mushrooms are good. Actually, some mushrooms are really bad for you, but the best of the best mushrooms are actually incredibly nutrient dense. Like they're within the top 50 most researched foods in the world. There's multiple mushrooms and you can use them for skin, stress reduction, brain power, energy, a lot of stuff that nobody never needs, right?
I have to ask this because I'm just wondering, and this might be not even related, but is shrooms in this category, like the drug that people do?
Well, so magic mushrooms, or commonly shrooms, is definitely affects your body and your physiology. And the most common one, the psilocybin, is not really legal right now. So the official verdict is that it is not good for you. And then there's another one called Amanita muscaria that is legal, but it's actually more poisonous than the psilocybin. So they are very studied. Are they good for you? You know, the jury's out, but they definitely are functional.
What's your personal feeling?
Yeah, you're having like a smile on your face. What do you feel about this?
I'm a fungi, you know, so in the literal sense.
You're a fun guy?
Yeah, yes, correct. And it's a pun. It's a really bad mushroom pun. Apologies. I'm a fan, but I am not a fan of recreational use.
Yeah.
So
we just had, I don't know if are you familiar with Aubrey Marcus at all?
Yeah, he's a homie.
Okay, yeah. So we just had him on and we talked all about this, and so
yeah,
super interested in it.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier, when it comes to skin, is there specific, there's a very big lack of education, I would say, in the United States around mushrooms and which mushrooms, right? Like you think of mushrooms, you just think of the little white ones in the grocery store. Or, you know, if you're at a fancy restaurant, maybe, you know, the fancy ones and all that. But if you were to give a tutorial to somebody who's extremely novice, like myself, on mushrooms,
yeah,
and I wanted to repair my skin or I wanted gut health, like where would you tell me to start?
Well, I think, do you drink coffee?
I do drink coffee.
I think coffee or chocolate are the easiest ways to incorporate these top mushrooms because they're very bitter. They don't taste like a normal portobello or butter mushroom. They're very, very bitter. And usually bitter is better in herbalism anyway, but it's hard to consume it on a daily basis. Like we are not wired to have bitters. Like we're not used to it. You have to teach yourself to love bitters. But the two bitters that we do love is dark chocolate and coffee generally. So I would add mushrooms like chaga and lion's mane to your coffee. That's a great way to start. And then for skin specifically, I think the whole concept of eating for beauty is just about to blow up. People are realizing that even though you benefit from using topical stuff on your skin, when you do topical, you're focusing on not the root cause of the skin. Yeah, well, basically, you're mostly focused on fixing something short term, but the long game is to make sure that the largest organ in your body, which is skin, has the nutrients and has the building blocks to be beautiful and shiny. Like I sometimes go and talk here and near him, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, to William Morris, IMG, and they always like, what do you put on your skin? What do you do? I'm like,
your skin is good.
Nothing.
Your skin is good. That's the first thing I noticed, guys. I gotta say.
And I just say, it's like, what do you eat, you know? And there's few things that there's a million things you could do, but it can get overwhelming. So like I usually give 3 tips on what to do when you want to eat for beauty, right? Because there's all these expensive stuff as well, so you don't have to. One that you have to really focus on, you mentioned, was gut health. Like gut is super, super linked with our brain, but also our skin. So you really want to kind of use gut health. And there's many ways there. I don't recommend expensive probiotics. They're really hard to use and you don't really get bang for your buck. But what you can do is good spices. Like you really add spices to your diet, or
like what? I need specifics.
Cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, turmeric, Those are all within the most study. Add them to your, for example, to your coffee, and have a little cinnamon or thing. And I brought you guys some golden latte, so like turmeric. But those are amazing. And you just want to have spices. Spices are amazing for your gut. You don't have something expensive, something superfood. Everybody should have organic, basic spices. They're not going to break your wallet at all. The second thing that I recommend is liver detox. And I'm not talking about a crazy juice cleanse. I'm kind of semi-anti against those. But like, just help your liver, because your liver is really the mirror to your skin health, and liver really purifies your body. So you want to get some herbs or mushrooms or things like that really cleanse your liver.
What would you recommend for liver out of your products?
Like if somebody's in the grocery store and
shiitake mushrooms are found almost everywhere. For more exotic ones, I really like reishi, which is the queen of mushrooms. On the herbs, milk thistle is pretty good. Schisandra berries, dandelion leaves. So probably shiitake and dandelion leaves are stuff that you can find almost everywhere, and those are amazing to cleanse your liver. So that's really big. And then finally, antioxidants. And it's a big word that you find everywhere, and not all antioxidants are created equal, but especially antioxidants like melanin that is found in chaga mushroom, or certain polyphenols found in cacao. So chocolate is actually one of the healthiest foods on the planet. Even coffee has antioxidants. It's the number one source of antioxidants in the American diet. So black color is really good. So you should eat the whole rainbow, the purple and the red and the orange and all that stuff, but black especially is good for your skin. So olives, black olives, coffee, cacao, black sesame seeds, chaga mushroom, charcoal.
Mushroom chocolate in front of me.
Yeah.
This looks so good.
Yeah, so black foods for the skin. So gut health, give your liver a chance, a little break, and then eat antioxidants and polyphenols, especially black foods.
Okay, so out of all your products, is there something that can hit all three?
Well, that's a very good question. All three. That kind of indicates that you do one and done, and I like to indicate that it's a lifestyle.
Right.
But I would say probably we make this chaga mocha that has coffee, cacao, and chaga mushroom, so that's probably the closest you'll get.
Ooh.
And then you get a delicious mocha with 1 gram of sugar, and you also get stuff for your skin. So.
Okay, that sounds right up my alley, because I'm getting my skin, my gut health, my liver, my antioxidants.
Yeah, that's probably it. But
so let's talk. You know, we got all these beautiful products for us. Sure. Let's talk about Four Sigmatic, because not only are you a wealth of knowledge in the wellness space, and we could go on, and we probably will, but let's also talk about the business.
Yeah. I'm not in a hurry, so.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. How did you start the business? Like, what did the beginning look like for you?
So yeah, that's a great question. So I get asked all the time is like, how do you get going? I'm sure you guys as well. And I don't think there's one way to the top of the mountain. So there's many ways to do it. It's also good to understand like what kind of lifestyle do you want. So for me, it was important to have freedom. Like I never ended up raising like venture capital and going crazy. I wanted to build from day one something that even if it grew a little slower, it was like profitable, close to profitable. And that was really important for me. But then that means you do a sacrifice. So like in the beginning, I couldn't really pay myself a salary, and my team didn't either get paid, or they got equity, and now they're, solid. But in the beginning, it was like hard, right? So you just have to decide how you did it. I moved from Switzerland, which is super expensive, to Philippines, which is not that expensive, to support there early on so I could live more affordably. And then you also had to figure out the business strategy based on that. But for me, it was important that we could build products that were authentic, and there would be nobody controlling the integrity of the product. That was really important. And my vision was also so big or crazy, or however you want to say it, is like I wanted everybody to drink mushrooms, for example. And that's not something that 5-6 years ago somebody was like, oh, that's obvious if you just get people it was so out there. And some of the best entrepreneurial ideas are out there, but that just means that you're fighting against the masses in the beginning, and you have to figure out ways how you can support yourself in the transition before it starts getting traction.
Those are usually the best ideas, right? The ones where everyone says you're crazy or it's not a good idea. Like if everyone's giving you a pat on the back from the beginning, I feel like you might be in a little trouble. It's just counterintuitive because you want that validation, but and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, carving out a category, but I want to still stick with the beginning, because there's a lot of young people listening to this and trying to figure out how to start a business. Going way, way back, do you remember the first resources you had, or the very first steps you took to get a product in the market?
Yeah. So I would say in the beginning, if you overly simplify, you have two things you need to do. You have production and sales. And sales doesn't mean you have to force sell it. You just have to find a way to test it. So production is, I would say, if you have a product business of any sort, it's usually the way harder part of it. So definitely talk to people who've been there, done that. I had expertise in formulation, but still when you make a product, you make headphones or apparel or food, the production ends up being where young entrepreneurs get burned the most. Either they lose money on a bad run, they choose the wrong partner. So definitely ask for help, right? So I think asking for help is a huge thing, and taking your time to you really optimize the product, especially if you start and you don't have tons of resources. At the end of the day, marketing is kind of the tax for a bad product. I'm not saying that all marketing is bad, and we do marketing, but at the same time, if you have an amazing product,
it'll market itself.
It will definitely help so much, and you have to so many things will be easier if you do an awesome product, and product that you believe in, you pumped, you love it, you tested multiple things. So you not only had a product that you like, but you can also tell 50 products that you don't like and why you ended up in this one instead of the 50 other options.
Do you have any tips for building the right team around you when you're first starting out?
Yeah, I think, again, there's many ways to achieve it, but I think it's really, really important that you give your team part of the business. As an entrepreneur, I think it's really hard sometimes because it's your baby. Doesn't mean you have to give out control, but if you want to have a partner, you have to give them a piece of the pie, and I think that's really, really important.
It worked for Sam Walton.
Yeah.
He did all right.
Yeah.
I want to talk, okay, so you get the business up and running, you figure out production, figure out marketing, but let's talk a little bit more about the category, because at the time when this was, and it still is, I would say, a very new category. There was a lot, especially in America, there's a very big lack of education around mushrooms, right?
Sure.
How did you go about educating, and two, what were some of the hurdles defining a new category?
So as an entrepreneur, it's easy to fall in love with your own ideas. It's like, or as a creative
wait,
as well.
What? That's never happened to me before. I don't know what you're talking about.
Or if you're a creative, there's a saying, kill your darlings, right? It's really, really hard.
I get tunnel vision. I completely relate to what you're saying.
And that probably makes you an amazing entrepreneur, because you can push through the vision that you had, but at the same time, sometimes it's good to take a break. So in this case, for example, I love adaptogens and mushrooms and stuff, but it's easy to fall in love with the reishi mushroom, the chukai, all that stuff. But people don't care. They literally do not care.
Here's what you do. You have 5 kids and you name them after your favorite mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's what you should do.
Yeah, I want a couple berries there. I want a Shisandra baby. So I'm single. If there's any girls out there who want to have a Shisandra, I'm just sort of
Listen,
joking.
get out there with your skin and your mushrooms and your successful business. I'm sure there's some girls listening that are ready to go.
You want to have a Shisandra berry baby. Anyway, what a tangent.
So blue-eyed Finnish man.
So what I think is really useful, and what was useful for me, especially being so passionate about what I do and so pumped about it, was to think about problems. Forget the solutions. Really, what are the stuff? So instead of me trying to hammer people as mushrooms are awesome, which they are, still I was hey, what are the problems that people have? Lack of energy, for example, or people love having, for example, coffee, but they get the jitters and they get heartburn, right? So in Finland, we drink more coffee than any other nation in the world, about 3 times more than Americans, which is insane, right? And in the Second World War, we were attacked both by the Russians and the Germans, and we ran out of coffee beans. So we started brewing this mushroom that grew in our forest in a tree called chaga, and we made a coffee substitute. And I'm yeah, that actually makes sense. And I knew the research that it has tons of minerals and antioxidants. A cup of chaga would equal to 30 pounds of keratin antioxidants, and had these minerals that made it more alkaline. So combining half and half of coffee and chaga made total sense. And instead of trying to sell people this chaga mushroom they've never heard of, even if they're super health conscious maybe, it's hey, do you drink coffee? Yeah. Do you ever get the jitters? Do you get heartburn? Sure. Try this and feel it on your body and see how you feel. And I just think that the 3rd cup of coffee is never a good idea. The 1st cup is a good idea, and sometimes the 2nd, but the 3rd one never. So offering people options to wean off of coffee or reduce that 3rd or 2nd cup with something else, that was the way. So you try to look at what's the problem, what's the use case, there is a habit of drinking coffee. There really isn't a habit of drinking mushrooms or eating mushrooms in the society. So instead of trying to change something, you upgrade it. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, I don't care about mushrooms and this is not my thing, whatever you're doing, whatever you're passionate about, instead of trying to change the world, even though you are changing the world, think of stuff that you can upgrade or add or replace in existing habits and rituals. And if you can tap into an existing ritual, a habit, and you can improve that, your probability of succeeding goes infinitely up.
The language I like to use is an improvement on the past, right? Because as individuals, nobody likes to be approached and says, hey, you need to change. You need to change your behavior. That feels very suppressive. It feels combative, right? But if you say, hey, you're going to improve yourself, everybody loves that.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the best entrepreneurial advice we've ever gotten on the show.
High five.
Yeah, I really, really, really like that, guys. Instead of trying to introduce something new, you just look what you can make little tweaks on.
So what are for example, your favorite brand? Like you look up to right now? Anything?
My favorite brand. Ooh, I love Eminence. It's a skincare product. Do you know what that is or no?
I'm not that good with skincare products, but
okay, I love Eminence.
So what made them extra special?
I think they did what you're saying. I think they took skincare and they did little tweaks. They made it very organic. They added blueberry extract, all these different things that I had never heard of. Pomegranate.
So they still do serums or moisturizers, or so people already were using whatever serum moisturizer, yes, and they just upped it, right?
Yes.
What's your favorite brand? Or
I don't know if I have I was really trying to think about that when you asked. I don't know if I look to a favorite brand, but I think if I were to dumb it down and look at brands that I respond to and respect, it's.
Tell them about the sleep mask, Michael.
Well, it's not a brand though. There's a product I like.
Yeah, but tell him why you like it. It's exactly what he's saying.
Okay, well, it is a good example. There's a sleep mask that I use. It's super cheap. It's like $10 on Amazon, and it's really strange brand. It's called Lone Throat, which is hard to remember or pronounce. But I like it because the typical sleep mask lays on your eyes, and then when you open your eyes, like your eyelashes or your eyelids scrape against even if it's silk, it's not that comfortable, and it feels like you're stuck. This thing just lays on top of your eyes casually, and it has like little globes or fly eyes, so you can open your eyes inside. It's still pitch black, and he wears it every night. Super simple, but it's a complete improvement on something that's been done for forever, and I use it every night now.
It's Perfect. Like nothing like when I get in my lingerie and like go to the bed and you're wearing fly eyes on your face.
No, it's true. I'd be guilty. I literally cannot see anything.
Let's talk about e-com a little bit. You're obviously very good at it. What do you think is essential to an e-com brand?
I think customer first. I guess that's same for everything. But in e-commerce, you have things that are easier and certain things that are harder. And if you focus on the stuff that is easier, one of them is data. Like you can really get to know your customer. Obviously, if you for example have a new food brand and you go to farmers market, that's one way to test. But then you're still tied into a certain location, certain demographic. Now in online, you can test stuff. You can split test and look at data and really look at what's actually resonating. It's not gimmicky. You just get to know your customer deeper. And I think that's really vital. Is from day one, you have to have the ability to look at data. For example, I have this great vision of a new ingredient. I'm like, ooh, this is I love. And I might have used it for 10 years. I'm like, I'm really into this. One of the first things I do, I go to YouTube and Amazon and look at how many people are searching that. And I'm like, snap, like nobody's searching for this food because nobody knows what it is, right? So then I'm like, how can I use it and and then I look at what stuff people are already looking for. And using that data, I can combine with my vision on how to apply it into people's life so that it's more easily approachable, right? So I think looking at data is absolutely kind of the best part about e-commerce. And the second is the ability to tell stories. I mean, it's so hard.
Important.
And we're sold in like Whole Foods and we're sold in like retail as well, but it's so hard in store to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
And
you almost can't.
Almost can. Like you can put some on the packaging. Like one of our team members is a comic book artist, so he drew like a whole cartoon inside the box, and you can do stuff, but like it is so hard.
And then you get into shelf space dynamics and competition.
Yeah.
Love it. So what you've done really well, though, is you utilized podcasting so the hosts can tell their own story about your product, which is genius.
Yeah. And look, I mean, like with anything else, education is so huge. And I think podcasting revolutionizing how education works. Like I come from Finland where education is free. So even if you go to the best business school or med school, it's all free. You actually get a salary to go to school. And so I was brought up in a system where education is democratized, but then you come to places like the US, or before I lived in places like the UK or France, like it gets expensive. Like not everybody has access to education, but what podcast is changing that. Everybody has access to free podcasts, right? Yeah. So you can pick the best minds, the best people in the world. And when I was starting as an entrepreneur, I didn't have access to that. I would try to get a book here and there and get that. But like now you can hear and get to know some of the best people in the world and learn from them. You still have to go and make your own mistakes, but like podcasting is so amazing. And then as a brand owner, if you want to do an advertising, get the word out on your product, like what is better than authentic people, you know, educating and putting it out there, and also supporting this movement of podcasts. Like new media in general, it's just crushing. Like we've been lucky enough to be on like fancy magazines and stuff, but it's still insane is like, I'm not gonna talk bad about the media, but like we've been in huge, you know, media outlets.
I'll talk bad about them. They don't convert.
Yeah, there's no clicks. You know, it's like, okay, BuzzFeed had clicks, but like most of the stuff, the massive household names, we've been on like front page of some of these, and they're supposedly how they calculate is like the whole world is on there. Like, oh, we have 22 million visitors every month. Like, yeah, we got 4 out of those.
But you know what's interesting?
We being on the front page of a media that supposedly gets 22 million hits and you get 4. I don't really believe it. Then you go on some small podcast who was my buddy who gets like not nearly as successful as you, and we get like, you know, 10,000 people finding us through that.
You know what? It's I boil it like this, one of my crusades. I boil it down to consumer attention and the way that we behave as consumers. Like even if you're on a big publication on their site, or you're looking through a magazine or in a commercial, what do? You either flip past, you scroll down, or you fast forward, right?
Yeah.
That's just how we behave as consumers now. So yeah, you might have all this traffic to the site, but us as consumers, we're there for a specific thing, and we're going to go through the funnel as fast as we can to get to that thing and skip over most of the, you know, the ads or the placements or whatever.
I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this, but like what makes podcasts so amazing is that I can do it as a secondary activity. Like for example, I love cooking. Like
I made up a name for this, by the way.
What is it?
Passive multitasking, but gone.
Yeah, that's amazing actually. Can I steal that?
Yeah, you can steal it.
So I, for example, love cooking. Like I'm super busy running the companies, but that's kind of one of my forms of meditation. But at the same time, like sometimes I listen to music, but I sometimes feel like I want to educate myself. So podcast or YouTube or whatever, those are the ways how I do it. Like I don't have to read and focus only on that. I can do it and absorb information and discover new stuff as well. Like some of my favorite podcasts are amazing because they curate odd personalities and people that I've never even heard of, right? So that's also the beauty, is that somebody's curating that for you and finding new stuff that you don't even know that you're interested in.
Everyone says that multitasking is bad, but I think when it's like that, when you're doing something that it's like you said, cooking's meditative for you. You're doing something that you love to do, but you're also able to consume knowledge at the same time. I think it's so funny because everyone says you're the top 5 people you hang out with, and I'm always like, well, I hang out with Tim Ferriss and Gary Vee and Aubrey Marcus sometimes.
Yeah.
Not to get, I don't want Michael to get mad because he likes open relationships, but you know.
Yeah. I think I'm hanging out with Aubrey too.
But I think that you surround yourself with that knowledge all the time when you're doing passive tasks that make you happy. It's really a win-win.
Yeah, and I mean, there's tons of studies on just subconscious mind and how you just start feeding, like planting seeds to that. So even if you're not actively listening, the fact that those topics get brought up to your brain, I'm sure that like long-term is a huge win.
Thinking about, and we'll jump off this soon, but I want to get one more gem from you with e-com, or maybe a couple gems from you.
Let's do 3.
If a young person's out there and they're like, was there a certain platform that you started? Was it like a Shopify or a WooCommerce? Because it was funny, I got a request to talk about e-com because we were talking earlier. That's my background. Was there a certain platform you started on in the beginning that was easy to access? I know it's evolved since then, but something that someone right now could get started on if they have something to sell.
Yeah, we started with a really bad Woofu form, selling and manually inputting, so I can't recommend that one. Shopify is great. Like you don't reinvent the wheel. And one thing I can say about software and platforms and tools is that always choose the one that hurts a little bit to get. Like it's a little too expensive and you're like, I can't do, like, it's not like it's not going to put you out of business, but you always choose a little bit of a better platform. That usually ends up being a better customer experience. You have less headaches in online fulfillment. So like, if you're just like, can I afford this better upsell app, or can I afford this CRM or online fulfillment things? Like, get it. Like,
what is unnecessary in e-com? Like when you're thinking back, like what are some things you got that were like, wait, this was a complete waste of time? Like I equate this now to business cards, right? Like you've spent all this money getting a business card. So I'm like, who the hell are you going to get in front of to hand all these things out?
Okay, side story there. I said when we started that we'll not have meetings, managers, offices, or business cards. We've broken every rule so far. The last one we broke was the business card. Was like, we're not getting business cards. And then we meet this sweet guy who makes business cards out of elephant shit. And I'm like, I'm supporting you. Like you are
literal elephant shit.
Yes, they made, because elephants, eat grass and then poops out and there's fiber and you can make it. Anyway, now we have business cards as well that I never carry and use, but I wanted to support the guy who makes elephant shit business cards.
What
Hopefully,
a great birthday gift for you, honey.
I'm
going to make a birthday gift out of that for you.
Ray, we're going to get some Dear Media elephant shit business cards. We'll have to clear it with my partner, but
I think there's also sheep shit or something like that.
Oh, so I can do like a medley of sheep and elephant together.
If you're going to get a business card, a useless business card, make sure it's sheep shit or elephant shit.
My team ordered them. Otherwise, I would say their name because they need small businesses like that need support. So anyway, yeah. I can't remember it, but I'm sure if you Google, you'll find them. And
what was unnecessary to e-com? Like if someone's starting out and they're like, oh, I'm going to get all these different things to get my e-com business up. Like looking back, where there's some things maybe you didn't get them, but things you could think of now, you're like, you don't need that to get started.
The problem with e-com is like what worked a year ago might not work now or a year from now. So like you have to constantly keep, I'd say there's like testing or drilling for oil to find like the good stuff, right? So it's kind of hard to say because of that. What is it from a kind of theme and principle point? Like consultants, like you get approached by so many people who are e-commerce gurus and experts. Like first of all, if you want to do business online, you have to learn it. You don't have to become the best in the world, but you have to understand it. There's no shortcut. Like you have to understand the process and the concept. So you cannot outsource that if that's your core. Like you can find talent later. So that's one thing is like a lot of people like start like hiring agencies and all that stuff. Not to say that some agencies are not good, but if you end up going with an agency, really find the one that suits your scale and size and know-how, and then really build a relationship with them. Don't just be like totally outsourced and off. Like the times when we've worked with someone, it's been best when we're even more active on that topic, and then we learn from them and they learn from us, and it's really a partnership. But really the outsourcing compound, the style, I'm not a fan. So
I'm not a fan either.
My agency friends are going to get pissed, but this is a good tip. I haven't ever said this before, but go and approach some of the bigger agencies and ask them for a proposal or scope of work and see what they propose, and then don't go with them, but go learn everything they're talking about, right? Like if it's UX design or optimization, all that stuff, like go do the research yourself, but you can use those proposals, and this is people are going to get pissed, but you can use those proposals to figure out what you need to learn. And I agree, like if you just have somebody saying all this stuff that's foreign to you, right, in language that you don't understand, then they're going to be in a position to take advantage of you.
100%, and especially like with data, you can lie or misrepresent data so many ways in e-commerce and online. So like you really need to know what's the truth, because if you don't know the truth, you don't know what you're improving. So
you almost have to become a practitioner of every facet in your business.
Totally. You need to know the language. Like if they speak a foreign language, and that's when you can get fooled. But at the same time, you can also miss out on opportunities on partners that could really move the needle for you. So
I'm very interested in this store that you have. So you did a store, but you can't buy anything there. It's all free. Explain the mentality behind that, because I'm sure it's something really interesting.
Well, we have a shroom room. It's in Venice Beach, California on Abercrombie, and we're looking to expand that. So we bought a school bus that we're converting into a mushroom mobile that will travel around the country serving free drinks, coming soon to your town or village near you. And the concept is like all the drinks are free, so you can come there and we'll make you a free drink.
But what's your why for that?
So there's actually 3 reasons why we did that. First reason, the most important reason, can I curse?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Because we fucking wanted to. So The first reason,
fucking love it.
When you are an entrepreneur, like one of the reasons I think you become an entrepreneur is also to like live the lifestyle that you want to live. Like have the freedom and the freedom to do what you want. And if you can, in like early days, you can't do stuff because like you're broke. But like when you have a little bit of resources, if you can do shit you want to do, you should do them just because like it's fun, right? That's why it was fun for us. My friend Teeny has had a shop handle Only with Love like there for years. I would go and hang out there, see friends. It was like a community, right? And Kinney and like many other places that are becoming popular get like gentrified, and there's more like there's fancy fashion stores and whatnot. So like having a good old school shroom room there is like kind of what I call the judo move. Like use the energy, the opposing energy for your benefit. And so that's the reason number one. Second is that I truly believe that our products are the bomb and they work. And even if it's not our products, I believe in the healing power of mushrooms so much. And I've seen it for years in so many different facets. So I just want to spread that word and people to try it. And if that's the barrier of people to try it, that it costs money, here, take it for free. Like if you feel it, like then $1 a day or $2 a day, whatever, is not going to be a problem. So, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like a drug dealing mentality, but for good, right? Like you just give people the chance to try it. And then third reason is that the problem with online long term, which we've not yet faced, but I see that in the future, is like emotionally connecting with people. So online, you can scale stuff, you can do but I want to build an iconic brand, an iconic thing that will change the world to be a better place, which a lot of entrepreneurs say that, right? But in order to achieve that, I think you have to connect with people in person. I love online, use online,
community,
all that stuff, but you need this, like what we're doing right now, connecting in person, right? And it's so much more impactful. And unfortunately, we work with some really good retailers, but still it's so hard with the Whole Foodses of the world and so expensive to really connect, and you can't really control the experience yourself. So why just not do your own shop? And you can buy product at home if you want to take a whole bag of stuff, and then you can buy it there, but you can also buy it online somewhere else. Like you can buy it on Amazon or go somewhere on a website or whatever. But there, you know, and we're not taking tips or anything. The whole point is just to educate and teach and share.
I always say that when I launch Skinny Confidential product that I want a storefront, and not because I want to sell shit. It's because one, I think the advertising too that you get from the storefront's incredible. And two, you, like you just said, you can meet the community and you can actually engage face to face. That's so important in this world. How do you run your social media? Do you run it yourself? Do you have a team?
Well, my personal social media is a joke, basically. I've never been on Facebook.
Wait, what's your personal social media in case there's any single girls out there that want to name their kid after a berry?
Blow it up the DM.
Wait, what's the berry name again? I might name my firstborn that.
Shisandra.
That's a pretty name.
Yeah, I think it's too.
What if you ran into us and you met Shisandra Bostic? Is that how you say it?
I won't steal
it.
I will not steal your berry name. I promise.
I have a lot of berry names. So if you take that berry name, I can do Cloudberry or Lingonberry. I don't know. So I am Tero, Tero, and I basically post mostly bad dad jokes and mushroom puns. That's my niche. But we actually have a company, Four Sigmatic, and I put out content there, educational stuff. And now we have this sweet girl, Celeste, and she helps because like right now, in the last few years, social media has become almost like a customer service. Like we get so many DMs from so many amazing people. Like it's not just about posting. It's actually 5% posting and 95% engaging, right? Which is awesome, but it just takes a lot of time. So we have this beautiful team of people who really live the lifestyle. They shop at Erewhon and they go to places, they know all the products, not just our products, but like the whole thing. And they can really answer questions that people have. Is like, hey, can I combine these two? What about this and that? And they can actually reply.
Really cool.
At this point,
if anyone wants to go foraging out there at Tero.
Yeah. Anyone wants a foraging date. At this point with the business, it's massively successful, distribution everywhere, e-com going well, storefront. What keeps you motivated now as an entrepreneur? Like what is the thing that keeps you going now? Because you've got it built out and of course it's going to keep progressing, but what's keeping you going? That's
a very good question, because I feel like there's certain dopamine rushes that you get as an entrepreneur, like the first retailer, like the first hire, you get that fancy story on Vogue or something like that, and you're like, ooh, that's nice, but like those don't really last, don't they? And we get a lot of amazing customer feedback that like reading. I still spend probably an hour a day reading customer comments and feedback, because like that's what really drives me. On top of that, what I found recently, like, is really like working with the team is like something that I really personally enjoy. It's not for everyone, and I'm not like the best people leader, but I really like helping and teaching and coaching. Like I've always felt that I would have been a good middle school teacher or something like that, and that's what I enjoy with our team. So my team is many ways infinitely smarter than I am, but at the same time I can provide some of the picture stuff and obviously the product information, and I really enjoy that. The second thing I love doing is outlandish shit. Like that's just something, it's like a rebel in me. I love figuring out stuff that it's not allowed or you can't do.
What's the most recent one?
Well, the bus is probably the most recent one, is like you shouldn't probably do that kind of stuff. But this fall I'm making a children's book about psychedelics, which is
that is amazing.
So actually I've not told that anywhere. My team is probably going to get mad that I said that, but it's coming. And so I love doing stuff like that. Like that is not allowed.
You're not going to be single for long.
Children's book about what is I know you don't want to get too detailed, but what is the motivation behind that?
I think there's a beautiful story, and I think you can approach something that are difficult, and you shouldn't hide stuff from children. I'm not saying that this is for like toddlers, but like you want to talk openly about difficult things. Anyway, there's a whole philosophy around that. So I love doing outlandish shit. And then finally, now that we have a team, I can get back even more into product development. So that's kind of like where it started, and that's what I love. So working on new recipes, and you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince also on the product development side. And I love doing that, and overdosing on something and then realizing that you shouldn't eat that, and making horrible flavors that you have to flush through the toilet because it's so garbage. But I love that process. So those are probably the three things I'm currently enjoying the most.
What's a mistake that you made along the way that at the time it felt devastating, but it was later revealed to be a blessing?
Yeah, I think the first time when you have to let go someone, especially if you care for them as a human being, which has always happened, that's really, really hard. And also acknowledging the fact that when you're starting out and you're scrappy, will those people be there 5 years later? It's also like, that's really, really hard, especially when you care for those people. But at the same time, when you think of like, you're preventing them from finding the job that is actually suited for them, right? So I think that's the hardest, because there's emotions and feelings and friendships involved. And sometimes those friendships take a little hit, but you can only do is approach it with honest integrity. But those are really, really difficult.
Have you hired friends and family?
A lot.
Yeah, so have we.
And sometimes it works.
It's either super rewarding or maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's very binary.
Yeah, I want to be careful because we still have some.
No, we have the ones we have are great right now.
My best employees are friends for sure. And the ones who were not friends before, they become your friends, right? So I think it can definitely work. But like the criteria is slightly different. It's like a Venn diagram. There is a point where they meet, but at the same time, they don't always connect. So that's definitely a mistake I've done. And then I would say overcommitting is also, as an entrepreneur, easy.
Please talk on this. I need some help.
When you are entrepreneur, or if you're just type A personality, or you have a big dream, you sometimes, you bite too much. And sometimes what happens is not the fact that you can't deliver on it because you work hard and you're passionate, but sometimes some of the polishing is not there. Right? So you don't have enough time to edit and fine tune the last mile. And usually at the last mile is where the most value is derived. And you already want to get to the next thing. So it's partly like, for me, it's like just hiring people who can help with some of that polishing, but also like pacing myself, because life of an entrepreneur is not like, what can you done this week, like, or next month. It's really, it's a long ass journey. And having the patience to kind of polish and fine tune. At the same time, you cannot make it perfect. You got to put it on the market and ask for customer feedback, and that's fine. But maybe that balance is where I've done a lot of mistakes. And then overcommitting, and then it's not that the business suffers necessarily, but it's like then you start to know social life. You realize that some of your best friends, you haven't seen them in 3 months, and that can happen, and that's not healthy. I've never had problems with like exercise or eating healthy on the side, but I know some people struggle with that. It's more like, for me, it's like not seeing friends as often as I would hope. and then overcommitting and then not polishing certain things as much as that they should be polished.
As a business owner or creative, because you're putting yourself out there, or type A personality, entrepreneur, you have to, in my opinion, develop thick skin, right? And you do develop thick skin as you're in the process. How do you, at this point, how do you deal with setbacks? Or where does your mind go?
Well, that's where the shrooms enter the game. No, I'm kidding. So there's many kinds of setbacks. So I feel like as an entrepreneur, you definitely build thick skin for mistakes. There's a risk and reward thing. Like if you don't take risk, you're not going to get anything done. So you have to like put yourself out there. And I'm comfortable with that problem. Like it stings a bit, but it's like the good sting, right? And that's not a problem. It's more when you don't follow your own principles and values. Sometimes when you catch yourself, and those are the stuff like, I knew better, you know? Those are the places when you're like, hey, I knew that this is not what I wanted. Those hurt. And those are, you just have to take them in. You just have to kind of like meditate on them, however you do it. I also like Saturdays, Sundays going for a long hike. And those are usually when I reflect that like, oh, I fucked up big time there, you know? But then when you take a deliberate risk, for example, if I'm...
How long does that conversation occur in your head until you move on?
Normally I can do that in about 2 hours of like hiking, and then I get hungry and then I forget it. Maybe that's a guy thing. But then few times it will like literally last for months. Like you know, but like most of the time, like you go for a hike with an empty stomach on a Saturday morning, and then 2 hours of hiking and thinking about it, then you get hungry and they're like, okay, time to move on. So.
I'm going to send you on a hike next time you get grumpy.
Make sure my belly's full.
Yeah.
How would you define a failure?
Well, that's a great thing, because like if you find something, you test something and you find out that it's not converting or working, that's not really a failure. It's, I think, probably when you don't live to your truth. So like some of my core philosophies in life is living my own life in my own way, not someone else's life in my way or my life in some other person's way. It's my life, my way, and then seeing the truth and accepting it. So I think those are the times. And third one is reacting to negative with positive. So if any of those three I don't achieve, that's, to me, it's a temporary mistake or failure. So for example, if I don't accept the truth, like I see it, but I fight it, that's, to me, that's failure. The fact that if I make a mistake somewhere, that's not really a problem. So if I don't live to my truth, and that's where I think failures happen. When
you say fighting negative with a positive, can you elaborate there?
Yeah, I mean, the classic example is probably like road rage or something like that. Someone in LA, there's a lot of bad drivers, and then
the worst.
Yeah, and
are you taking notes here, honey?
Yeah,
mental notes.
Good.
So, like, how can you have compassion? And also, sometimes you meet people that do bad things, especially in big cities. I feel like there's like a lot of light but a lot of darkness, right? And LA is a prime example of that. And when you meet that darkness, it's often easy to be judgy. Like my spirit animal is definitely a cat, so I'm like judgy in the corner sometimes. So like how to respond to that with compassion, because you don't know what shit they've gone through that day or in their life, maybe, you know, what happened in their childhood, what happened today, and why they're that. So like you don't know, so having compassion doesn't mean you have to be best friends with them, because maybe that behavior that they're demonstrating is not aligned with your values. But at the same time, you can always have compassion. So that's like what I try to practice. I'm nowhere near perfect, but like I try to practice that. And if I catch myself really not doing that at all, that is a failure.
Do you apply that to if you have a negative customer review? Do you kind of fight that with positivity?
Yeah, I actually thrive of negative reviews for product development. I actually think that's back to the e-com. One of the best things you can do is if there's an incumbent in your category, if you sell t-shirts or if you sell headphones or if you sell whatever phone covers, and you go and look at what's selling a lot, go look at two things. One, look at the 1-star reviews and look at what they're doing incorrectly. And
genius.
But secondly, look at 3-star reviews, because those people usually wanted to love the product. And there was something in the product or service that they loved, but something they left them unsatisfied. And those are ways to learn. For example, with us, like right now, we get certain negative reviews on certain packaging. We created this new tin and it was like the wrong size and it like sucked. Like it was just straight up was not where it was supposed to be. Back to the polished. The product is dope, but like the packaging was not correct. So all those negative comments, like we like contact those people and say when we fixed it, it's like, hey, now it's fixed, right? So I think that's an opportunity, and I think that's one of the best things about doing e-commerce is getting candid feedback.
And real feedback. I think like that is probably one of the biggest gems with e-com is you really have access. Like, if you sell something in a store, you don't know what the experience was after that. With e-com, someone can write in and say, hey, I really didn't like this. And instead of being offended by that, you have an opportunity to fix it and then rectify it with the customer. And
100%. And there's always like haters, but like people that are not in your target audience. And sometimes when you market, like you market to an audience that was mostly for you, but also some that were not. So like that's not the end of the world. You just find out that you narrow the scope and you find out who's your true customer and who's your true fan, and that's also totally okay. You don't learn as much from there, like, oh, I don't like any coffee. Well, that's not, you can't do anything about that, right?
Yeah.
So
you can tell when someone's a bridge troll, right?
For sure. And that's totally different. But especially that's why I love like the 3-star review or 2-star review. Is like those are the kind of the gems, really.
They were trying to give you some honest feedback so that you could help them improve.
Yeah, because they didn't slam you. They're like, I really wanted to like this, but XYZ. And
how
it's like,
do you, when that happens, after that process happens, you get that feedback, how do you then rectify it with the customer? You reach out personally, or you reach out email, or send them something? Like,
depends if they
do?
buy from Amazon or they leave it on social media because they bought it at Whole Foods, or if they buy our website. Depends how easy it is to contact them. We try to reply to all of them. We don't like, for example, outsource a customer service to Philippines or something. By the way, you live there, love them. That's not a hit against them, but like we really have people that are really knowledgeable. And we refund fully if you're not happy. We send you free product of something else. Maybe you didn't like the flavor. We send you something else for free. And if after that you're not happy, we feel that it's okay, So we try to contact them and do our best that we can. And it's like, I can't take any of that credit except like finding this amazing person who built that team for us. And she was our first female hire and first hire in the US. And she's just amazing. Like, just cares. Like, she's 100 million% in caring and all the other stuff she's learned, but she just cares so much. And she hired people that also cared. Like, she said no to job candidates that didn't care. So like, she holds this high standard on caring. And do they make mistakes? I'm sure, but like, she just cares. And that's what you need in customer service, I think.
So at this point, we've talked about failure, we've talked about mistakes, we've talked about e-com, we've talked about getting started. How do you define success now?
Well, this is the same thing, that the opposite of failure, I think. I think what is fascinating for me is like, what is not success? Like money, power, fame. Okay? So those to me, are not success.
Agreed.
They can be hygiene factors. For example, if you don't make X amount of money, depending on the city and where you live and if you have children or not, and there's factors. But if you don't have that baseline, you will be unhappy. After achieving that baseline, depending on the case, what it is, it's not really going to add a lot of value, right? And there's so many examples of that. It doesn't mean that money is bad, but that is not success. Like fame, like attention, like it feeds ego and keeps you going, but that's not gonna forever motivate you. It's like it's gonna wear you down. So what does actually? It's like purpose, meaning. It's like the most classic books out there, but I think it's a short read, very useful. Is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search of Meaning. Have you guys read that?
I've read it multiple times. It's one of the best books, and I keep it on my phone and my iPad.
You've never told me about that book.
I've read passages too. He survived Auschwitz.
So, you have read passages out of that book.
And that book is insane. And that book was not even supposed to be published or anything. Like, you cannot write that book ever again. So what happened is that one of the top 3 people in psychotherapy, they're all Austrians, Freud, Frankl, and then Adler. And this guy, when he was forced into a concentration camp, was already the top minds in psychotherapy. So he experienced it himself, but also from the eyes of a professional. So when something happened, he could dissect that from the point of being an expert in the human mind and psyche. And when he came out, he just almost scribbled his thought. It's not a big book, actually, but there's some so fundamental things to anything you ever do. I think that's just one of the books of books. And it's not a long read, and you can read the experts. Sometimes we go and look at a quote and we just, oh, that was nice. But the benefit of reading and sitting down is that you really think about what he says, or in the book, or whatever book it is, you learn. And I think that's one of the most fundamental books, and what creates success is meaning, for sure.
One of the passages in that book that still gives me chills is when he talks about the best of them not making it out of the camp, right? Like in studying human behavior and all the atrocities that they had to overcome and some things that you had to do to survive through that camp. He's saying like the best people in there, the you know, to the core didn't make it out of there. And it's chilling for sure. Let's talking about books. We're getting close to the end here. What are go-to products, go-to resources, things you recommend?
Maybe something that helps you with your morning, your night.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with morning routines and evening routines because I think we all get bombarded by a million things. We have to be amazing boyfriends, girlfriends, daughters. We have to do business. We have to know languages. We have to travel. We have to be cool. And I think like if you have the right type of morning routine and evening routine, it keeps you in check. But the problem I feel like is then you easily, if you have a too fixed routine, you forget to connect with your intuition and how you feel. Like if you always do the same thing, maybe one day you don't want to have that morning smoothie that you always have, or maybe you don't want to meditate, like you also listening to your body, right? But I have like 3 themes that I really try to do that are fairly easy. One is hydration. It's like I always try to hydrate in the morning, and there's different ways to achieve that, but that's like kind of the first thing I do.
Is that with water for you? Or is there like a water and lemon? Do you have a product that you use?
Water and lemon with a pinch of salt is great if you don't have access to spring water. So I think that's great. I use a lot of herbs. Herbs are like kind of herbalism is kind of my insurance policy. I've now been like 10 and a half years without ever being one day sick. And I fly like historically like 40 to 60 times a year.
Where do we get these herbs?
Well,
now you're really going to get hit up in the DMs because, I mean, I don't know who doesn't want herbs.
Listen, if I don't have to be sick for 10 years, I'll do whatever the fuck you say.
What are these herbs?
Yeah, well, herbs and mushrooms and stuff, like I test out things, and it's a whole nother conversation. I need to come back then with the children's book and we can talk about herbs for not getting sick. But so hydration is key, but I hydrate slightly differently. Sometimes I do have calories in the morning. Sometimes I fast, but like I try to listen to my body if I'm hungry or not, if the hunger is just a habit forming, but I always like hydrate. That's really important. The other thing I do is essentially like light movement. I used to like work out really hard in the morning and just is not for me. So I like go into fresh air and I stretch. But there's some sort of movement in the morning. It doesn't have to take long. It's not that difficult. And then I connect. And mostly I've been connecting with my mom. Like, it's kind of like I realized that my parents are getting older, and they're like starting to forget stuff, and, their hands start shaking and stuff. So I FaceTime my mom pretty much every morning, and I talk with her like 5 minutes. And that's like one way. But you could also connect in other ways. Sometimes you have like a breakfast meeting, or you see a friend, or you go for a walk, or sometimes work out with a friend in the morning, and that's fun.
Have sex.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on that.
Well, at this point, ladies, successful business owner, blonde hair, tall,
great
blue eyes,
skin.
calls his mother. Before we go, I do want to talk about Four Sigmatic because I've been talking to your team, and they were nice enough to create an offer for our listeners. I started with the mushroom coffee. That's how I listened to Tim Ferriss's show, like I told you earlier, and I that's when I started trying it, and I did it for about a month because I was having a lot of issues with coffee. I had like an adrenal gland thing going. If someone was new to your brand and they wanted to pick a place to start, where would you tell them to start?
I'll give a few options. So if you're listening and you struggle with sleep, I know it's the least sexy topic out there. We make an amazing, healthy hot cocoa evening time that helps you sleep deeper with reishi mushroom and cinnamon and cardamom.
That's where I'm going to start.
It's like healthy organic Swiss Miss that helps you sleep deeper, hopefully. So that's one is probably one, but I know a lot of people don't find sleep that's sexy. So coffee with lion's mane helps you kind of like have more cognitive function, and that's probably the jam. And then we make a turmeric latte that's good for the skin, and then we make, like, for example, a chai latte that is good for gut health. So those are caffeine-free options in the afternoon. So once you've already had too much caffeine and you just need something to kind of calm energy without the stimulation, like a chai latte or golden latte might be fun options.
Okay, cool. So to try that, go to foursigmatic.com/skinny and use promo code SKINNY for 15% off. That's FOUR Sigmatic, SIGMATIC.com and skinny. And Tero, you're a boss. Thank you for coming on the show.
One more time, your Instagram handle. Pimp yourself out.
Oh my God, I'm like.
And we're gonna put this in the show notes.
Oh my God, I'm like blushing. Finnish people are shy. I am Tero, Tero.
And your company?
Four Sigmatic.
Yeah, Four Sigmatic. FOURSIGMATIC.
Thank you for coming on. I can't wait to drink all the magical mushrooms.
And we're coming to take a ride on the bus.
Guys, do you want a short email from the Skinny Confidential? Tipsy Thursday is a quick email with tons of value that includes 5 tips from me, my favorite song of the week, show, book, wellness tip, random tricks, and of course, lots of easy beauty hacks. It's super short, straight to the point, kind of like a TSC little Aperol spritz for you. To check it out, go to theskinnyconfidential.com and click Lauren Everett's, then subscribe. Drop your email in the box and you'll get the next one. Lastly, as always, if you rate and review the podcast, please screenshot it, email it to asklauren@theskinnyconfidential.com, and we will send you my 5 top beauty hacks straight to your inbox. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. If you guys want to check out at Woo for Play, which is an all-natural coconut lube that's made up of 4 ingredients, organic coconut oil, beeswax, a little stevia, and a tiny bit of vanilla, go to wooforplay.com and enter code him and her at checkout. Again, that's wooforplay.com, promo code him and her for 20% off plus free shipping. I promise it'll keep the bedroom nice and spicy.
And again, if you missed the offer from Tero and Four Sigmatic, go to foursigmatic.com/skinny. That's FOURSIGMATIC.com/skinny. And then promo code skinny for 15% off all orders. Enjoy.